Hello, and welcome to Pop Chat. I'm Annette Tarpley, the founder of The Passion of Poetry. And with me today, I have Courtney Glover from the United States, and she is here as a poet guest. And so glad to have you, Courtney.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. So, Courtney and I started having a discussion, which we will have a different segment on later today about plagiarism because she was plagiarized this last week. And so we, after this event, probably going to be a separate event. I was going to put on the tail end of this, but we're going to have several people from the poetic community come in. There'll be a panel of 8 of us. Hopefully, everybody can make it. And then we're going to discuss plagiarism at that time. But Courtney Glover is from Fulton County, Georgia. She is a writer and published author, editor, and amateur photographer. Her passion for both writing and photography started when she was very young. 3 poets greatly inspired her, and those are Edgar Allan Poe, Robert Frost, and Shel Silverstein. She is the author of 4 poetry books, including Calypso Dreaming, a collection of her poetry. Her hobbies include reading, writing, listening to music, and watching movies. She is also the editor of The Sacred Feminine, an Open Skies collection anthology, and the Open Skies collection anthology. She's currently living with her family in New Jersey. So I talked to her the other day, and I was like, "You don't have a Jersey accent, Courtney."
Yeah,
So
yeah. I've lived in all over the South pretty much my entire life, but I've lived in New Jersey a few times too. But yeah, I am originally from Georgia, so
yeah. Well, I'm so glad that you joined us today. And just wanting to know a little bit about you. Perhaps first off, when your poetry career first started.
well, I know I studied poetry all throughout school, and I really got into it in high school, and that's when I really got into the Edgar Allan Poe and the Robert
Yeah.
Frost, and I absolutely fell in love with it. But when I was younger, I had a lot of poetry books, Shel Silverstein, what is his 2 books? A Light in the Attic and At the End of the Sidewalk, I believe his 2 books are. And so I really fell in love with poetry then, but I didn't really start writing until high school. And like I said, in high school, I was introduced to Robert Frost, Edgar Allan Poe, a lot of other poets, and I knew that's what I wanted to do. I knew right then I wanted to write poetry. I wanted to be a writer, but I
Yeah.
didn't really, you know, get into actually, writing a whole lot till I was an adult. And that's when I really, really got into it. And yeah, I've been really writing and publishing books for probably the last 3 years.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, it's amazing. I think a lot of us, we dabble a little bit when we're younger, and then as we get older, we kind of delve into it. So are you pretty prolific right now? How frequently do you write?
Well, I go through spurts. Sometimes I'll write every single day, and then other times I'll go for months and nothing will inspire me. So there'll be months when I just don't write anything. But when I do, it's constant. It's just like a sudden flow. I'll be
Yeah.
inspired by something I see or hear or quote or somebody else's poem that will inspire me to write my own. And
Is there a
so, yeah.
certain subject matter that you write on the most?
Oh, good grief. Probably I love mermaids and I love mythology. So I write a lot. That's probably the subject I write most on. But I really love Halloween too. That's like one of my favorite holidays ever. So, I'll write a lot of Halloween type poems too on different things. So really I don't think there's any one particular subject I focus the most on. But if there was, it'd probably be mythology and mermaids and stuff like that.
So
I
you
have
do a
one.
lot. You do a lot of fictional writing then,
Yes, a
and
lot.
probably use a lot of imagery as well.
Yes, I do.
Good. I love that. I love that. I did one on mermaids one time. Well, I had Timothy Payton on last week, about this time last week, and he and I did a poem a couple years ago on a mermaid. I showed him a picture of a mermaid and a seahorse, and we did this fictionalized thing on the mermaid and seahorse. But it's fun to go off into. So, tell me a little bit about yourself. Are you married? Do you have children?
Uh, I'm currently divorced. I have two children. My daughter, she lives in Alabama with her family. She has a husband, and I have two grandchildren by her. And I have a son. He lives with me. I currently live with my fiance, my son, my fiance's son, and uh, my fiance's father. So it's all of us in one house. So I have a house full right now. So yeah, that
Wow.
so two kids, two grandkids. But yeah, I love my family. My family is literally everything. Oh, and I have two pet rabbits too. They're my babies. They're like my children. They really are.
So I've always wondered about pet rabbits. How they make good pets?
Oh yes. Well, I say yes, but they can be a handful. Don't get me wrong, but yeah, they're low maintenance, easy to take care of, very affectionate. And my two rabbits, their names are. Well, I have a female whose name is Minnie, short for Minnie Mouse, because she looked like a little mouse when she was born. Because I've had her since she was 3 weeks old, so she would look like a little bitty mouse. So her name's Minnie Mouse. She's a handful, and we call her a diva because she really truly is. And then a few months ago, we recently adopted a male. He's about a year old. He's completely blind, so
Oh,
he he's really sweet, but he is always skittish, obviously because he can't see. But
right.
he's a sweetheart. His name is Anakin, and he really took to Minnie, and Minnie really took to him. She's very protective over him. But like I said, they're low maintenance, but they can be a handful too. They love to tear stuff up. So, oh my God, they're always like escaping from their little area. Well, I say area; it's a huge area, but they have like a gator cross, and they're always somehow managing to escape. I don't know how. They're like a couple little Houdinis. So help me! And when they do, they tear up everything. So they're sweet, but they can be destructive when they want to. But
Wow. So I guess do you have to worry about them going having accidents in your house? Are they litter trained
oh, they're
or
trained.
they
Yes,
are?
they're both litter trained because well, Minnie's been litter trained ever since she was 3 weeks old because she was the only surviving baby out of a large litter, and
Mm.
so we've had her since 3 weeks old. She was very easy to train. Anakin, because he's blind, I don't know how
Oh,
he does it. But yeah, he's litter trained too. I guess he goes by sense of smell, maybe. But yeah, he's litter trained too. They're both litter trained. So like I said, they're really low maintenance. They're good rabbits. They are. They're very sweet. Like I said, they're like my children too.
yeah, I'm sure. So have you ever written a poem on the rabbits or bunnies?
Um, I think I wrote one a few years ago, but it was just something very short, and it's been so long I couldn't even remember it if I tried. But
Mm.
yeah, I didn't.
Why
I
don't
said
you share a poem with us? That would be great.
I have a few. So
Yeah.
um, one of my favorite. I wrote it a couple of Halloweens ago, and it's my absolute favorite. It's called "The Widow." Oh, what a simple, much needed gift from the full harvest moon. Surrounded by silence in the darkness, her senses became attuned. As the moon cast its tangerine light upon an empty grave, amongst the cornstalks hid, no secrets did the furrowed and forgotten spot so readily or eagerly give. For there in the open ground lies an old wooden coffin, aged by time in the earth, now splintered, lid broken apart, open to the sky, covered in loose dirt, dug up from the deep in fear or desperation by mortal hands unseen. Did someone or something claw their way out, quite eager or quite keen? Perhaps some angry spirit that's hell bent on seeking retribution or revenge? Who or what is the deceased occupant so fervently seeking to avenge? Perhaps some Perhaps simply some zealous grave robber in desperate search of loot, though what they discovered the point now distinctly and obviously moot. Even more odd, no footprints anywhere on that freshly dug spot. Grave robber, sorry, grave robbers, highly unlikely. In fact, I think most definitely not. You'll find no sign of any shovel or dirt covered spade, as a rush of memories flutter her head, then eventually fade. A large white farmhouse with a little white picket fence set in a cornfield green. The blissful couple, childhood sweethearts, the bride young and naive, barely 16. The house and thriving farm, a large dowry with more than enough money to spare. The blushing bride's childhood home, how she had hoped to raise her own family there. Yet, she could not have known her beloved's greed or his desperation and evil intent, or how her wedding night would end so abruptly with him wielding a knife hell bent. Her groom, with no warning, his actions guided by greed. He claimed he'd protect and love her, but he loved her money more, it seemed. Then quickly burying her on her family's land in the cornfield green and tall, as he cried fake tears to the cops, then her family he eventually called. Going as far as to file a missing persons report quite quick, as he tried to remember the color of her favorite lipstick. Due to his rapacity, the pretty new bride was entombed, slowly rotting away, in a hastily built wooden coffin in the middle of a cornfield, a macabre charade. And it goes on, but it's a rather long poem. It's okay if I continue.
Yes, go ahead. Yes, of course.
Buried 6 foot deep beneath the rich soil of her family's now husband's big thriving farm, time passed while her husband gambled away her fortune unhindered and unalarmed. Back to the present as she stood there in her tattered, once pristine wedding gown, now recalling everything that had transpired, overwhelmed with grief, falling to the ground. Struggling to process it all, staring at her own grave, at her broken and rotted coffin below. How long did she lay there, dead in the ground? Months, perhaps years, who knows? How much time had her widowed husband spent there at those houses of ill repute? Only he, that odious man, knew the depth of his misdeeds and the whole sordid truth. As he drunkenly stumbled into their home and their eyes finally met, his jaw slacked as she greeted her loving husband with a large kitchen knife hid behind her back. She enjoyed the bewildered look in his eyes, his complete shock and utter confusion, face to face with the living corpse of his wife, whom he murdered on the night of their blissful union. She smiled her sweetest smile and said, "Welcome home, husband dear," as she revealed the same knife he had used on her, her intentions now painfully clear. The police would find his body the next day from some woman's anonymous tip, a suicide note admitting his heinous crime, with his guilty throat severely slit, along with an old grave, an undisturbed coffin, his murdered bride buried 6 foot deep, where in her perfectly pristine white wedding gown her heartbroken family would weep. Her soul was now set free. In peace she could now finally rest. Only the crows in the cornfield bear witness, though they never attest. And her dearly departed husband now rotting in the deepest pit of hell, a bittersweet ending to this regrettable and most tragic of tales. So that's my Halloween poem.
Wow, that's like a short story. I mean, it goes and it's got mystery and intrigue, and yeah, that's interesting. I guess I loved it. I'm thinking to myself when you're reading it, whether or not you kind of put your own signatures to things. Do you kind of emulate yourself after someone else's style? Is there someone that you've kind of fashioned your style, you know, over?
Um, I guess, like I said, it would if I fashion myself after anybody, it would definitely be Edgar Allan Poe.
Yeah.
I love dark poetry. Um, yeah, so I guess it would be him if anything. But you know, I guess if anything, maybe I have my own unique style because I'll write upbeat poems too. So I don't know. That's a good question.
Well, and Poe is who came to mind when you were reading that, but it's almost kind of a Halloweeny-ish kind of uh, poem. So, do you get a lot of support from your family with your poetry? Do they enjoy your poetry? Do they care
I
less about
do.
your poetry?
I do. They're very supportive and everything. I have a lot of supportive friends and family members. So yeah, they're extremely supportive. So I'm very lucky with that. I really am.
Do you remember the first time you were published? What you first had published?
Oh my goodness. The first thing I had published was Keith Sparks. I joined the Open Skies Poetry Group a couple years ago, and I saw that he had an open call for his quarterly anthology, and
Uh-huh.
I don't remember which pieces they were, but yeah, that was one of his books for the group. Was the first time I was published. So the fact that you know Keith saw something in me that that he liked, that he thought my writing was good enough to publish. So
Right.
that was a big deal to me. I was extremely excited because someone besides my family was taking an interest in my poetry. So Keith Sparks, yeah, he really motivated me and encouraged me. So I probably wouldn't still be doing this if it wasn't for him.
Right. Is there somebody, do you feel like that you receive a lot of support within the poetry community on an ongoing basis?
I do. I feel like I do receive a lot of support from different poets and everything. I know that a lot of us are like a big family. We
Right.
really are. And like I said, everybody for the most part is extremely supportive. I've met a lot of people, made a lot of friends through the poetry groups, and yeah, they're definitely very supportive of one another. And so I'm always talking about my poetry friends. Of course, nobody knows who I'm talking about, but
Yeah.
I'm always talking about my poetry friends and how supportive they are, and how what affects one of us affects all of us, and
Yeah. Yeah.
so
We had a recent death in our community, so that's been,
yes, that
uh, it's been,
heartbreaking, very heartbreaking.
yeah. I plan on doing a tribute to her on Sunday.
Oh, I didn't
So,
know. Okay,
well, it's kind of last minute, trying to
yeah.
put it together. Did you know Elizabeth?
No, I did not. Unfortunately, I never had the pleasure of meeting her. Unfortunately.
Yeah, she was lovely. So I think I've got some footage somewhere from I do open mic events, and I think she came to one of them. I'm gonna try to look for that. But so in the poetry community, is there anything that you feel that we could do as members of this community to further enhance or support one another? Is there something that we should do better that we're not doing?
Um, I would say that for a lot of the new people that are coming into poetry, a lot of them, not all of them, but I'd say a good bit of the new poets that are just starting out. And I've said this before. Everybody wants to be seen. Everybody wants to be heard, but very few actually take the time to stop and read other people's poetry.
Yeah.
So, the ones who have been in it for a while, like us, we know to read other people's poetry and appreciate other people's work and be supportive of other people's work. But like I said, some of the new poets, they don't do that. And I think that's something that needs to change. I think that everybody, whether you're new or you've been a while, I think everybody should read and support other poets' works. You know, buy other people's books. Don't just expect them to buy your books, buy their books too. Read other people's works. Just like I said, yeah, far as some of the new poets, I think they still have that to learn or to understand that to help spread the word of poetry, you have to read other people's works, not just expect them to read yours. Everybody's voice wants to be heard. So we really, need to do that more, I think,
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
Oh yeah. You had mentioned buying each other's books, which I think is important. And I really try to do that to support other people when their books come out. Um, and then, of course, after you buy the books, especially if you're doing it on Amazon, it's good to leave a review.
Absolutely.
Um,
Yeah,
recent,
review.
recently, a couple months or so ago, I had written a children's book in the spring, and another poet and author who had also written a children's book. We decided we were going to buy each other's books and then leave each other reviews. And she did hers in a timely manner. I did not. I was unfortunately very busy at the time. It was just so hard. Anytime I think about it, I didn't have time to do it. Of course, when I had a little time, I didn't think about it. So she kept sending me not so nice emails about it, you know,
Yeah.
about the unfairness of it. And I kept saying, I will leave one. So I went to leave it one day, and she had taken her reviews off of my site.
Oh, that's so sad.
Yeah. So I
Awful.
didn't so I didn't leave her a review. So I don't know if she took it off, then would have put it back on. I don't know. I just didn't at that point it didn't matter, you know. Um, there's been many times people said they were going to leave reviews and they haven't, and if they don't, then that's their prerogative. But anyway, was a little befuddled. I guess I waited much too long. I think this is probably a couple months down the road, 2 or 3 months. So I was late getting it done, but I would have done it. So
Well,
um,
everybody has a life and everybody gets busy with, real life stuff. And yeah, sometimes it does take time to get around to because life can become so busy and so overwhelming and you have to put stuff on the back burner. That happens.
yeah. So when you write, do you type it? Do you put it on your phone? Do you handwrite
Um,
it?
I used to handwrite before, iPhones were a thing, but yeah, now I put everything um on my phone because it's just much simpler because my handwriting is absolutely atrocious. I mean, it is just so awful. So, I mean, I can read it, but it's just to me, it's just. I mean, I still handwrite stuff, when I get the chance, but thanks to technology, it's just easier to type it out on my phone. It really
Yeah.
is.
Have you ever done that and then lost it?
Yes. Oh, that I'll write it and for some reason I'll click the wrong button and I'll accidentally delete it and then it's just gone. So that
Yeah.
has happened. That's very
Yeah.
that's just heartbreaking.
I know Jill's in the room, Jill Tate, and we were talking about that the other day. And we also have Greg Etzels here. And I'm not sure who else, if you could identify yourself because you're just showing up as Facebook user. This one says, greetings from Bangladesh. See how it shows up Facebook user? So
Yeah.
you really need to sign your comments so we know who you are. Because otherwise we don't know who you are. So, and I have, Jill just said something. Okay, so she's deleted a lot of stuff. And Jill's been a very prolific writer as well. So, how many poems do you think that you have written?
Oh, good grief. Probably oh my goodness. Probably 600-700 poems over the years.
Yeah.
So I'd say, yeah, probably in the last 3, maybe 4 years, probably 600-700 poems. Most I've published, a lot I don't because I'm very hard on myself, and so I'll write something and then think, well, I like it, but nobody else will like it, so it sits on my phone and never gets published in the group or in a book or anything. But yeah, probably 600 or 700. Which thinking about that now, that's a lot. That really is.
Well, I usually ask people how long it takes to comprise their work, but yours was lengthy, so I can only imagine you're not going to get that done in 5 or 10 minutes. And you're giving a lot of thought, and there's kind of a plot and story there. So, how long does a piece like that usually take you?
Um, there are times when I'll write something short and it'll take 2 or 3 days because I'm just having little spurts of inspiration. And then whether it's, actually that one I read, yeah, that came to me so quickly. It took probably 10 minutes to,
Wow.
yeah, because like I said, there are times when I'm just really inspired and the muse is there, and yeah, I'll put something out in 5-10 minutes and it'll just naturally flow. And other times I'll have an idea of what I want to write, but I'll really struggle with it and it'll take days. And it can be something short, but it'll still take days. So it really just, long or short, it just really depends on if the muse is flowing or not.
Yeah, yeah. Um, Greg Etzel has a comment. Says he writes his on paper so he doesn't lose it, which is probably smart.
Yeah.
Half the time, I keep thinking my handwriting is going to improve with a certain pen that I get, but it doesn't. And so there's sometimes where I can't read my own handwriting. Put something down, I think, what is that? So, and we have this is Jill. She said you should always post your work. Um, you should always post your work. So we are our own worst critics. Plus you. Okay. So she thinks, despite you thinking maybe it's just something for you and other people won't like it, I guess you should put it out there. And I think that there's always people that will. Have you ever been criticized? Somebody critiqued your poem?
Yeah, when I first started posting, I got a lot of negative criticism, which really wanted to make me stop writing. But I just, again, thanks to Keith Sparks, he encouraged me just to, take the good, use what I could, and just push the negative aside. And that he reminded me that if I love what I did, it didn't matter the negative comments.
Yeah.
Or some people, they would say things and they meant to be helpful but didn't always come off as helpful. But because when I, even though I studied it in high school, I didn't know all of the styles or the forms, or, I didn't know all the rules to it, like the difference between a
Mhm.
sonnet or a villanelle. I didn't know the difference. I
Yeah.
really did. So, I got a lot of critiques and, both good and bad. And I just, like he said, I take the good, use what you can, and the rest just push aside.
Yeah. Yeah. You say that it's funny because I had written a piece one time and called it a sonnet, and somebody corrected me because I didn't realize a sonnet had 12 lines. And I think mine had off 12 lines. It is 12 lines, right? 12 lines,
I
sonnet.
don't right offhand.
Yeah, so it has so many lines. It has to have that many lines to be actually called a sonnet. And I didn't know, so I was a little embarrassed. I should have added another couple of lines and just, called it done. But all right. And no, I think, nope, that was Jill's former comment. I don't think they're comment anymore. They might have left us. So I know that you mentioned earlier that you like to do photography. Do you ever use your photography with your postings?
Um, Not really. I love photography. I mostly take flower photos, so I haven't really had a chance to use any of my flower photos with any of my poems. But I have used my flower photos for a couple of covers of my books. I have done that. So
So
that's something.
somebody, I'm sorry, somebody just corrected me. 14 lines is a sonnet. There you
14.
go. I
Yep.
knew I'd say it and it'd be wrong. So 14 lines. I've got to somehow get that into my head. So let's just remember if we ever call something a sonnet, it's got to be 14 lines. Um, so when you so you do a lot of flowers, which I love. So are they flowers that you grow?
No, just Flowers I see when I'm walking around. Yeah, I do not have a green thumb. I kill any plant that I'm around. I don't know how, but I do. I always overwater it or underwater. I mean, I have a few plants that rosemary, but rosemary pretty much takes care of itself. But yeah, where I used to live, um, in a different part of New Jersey, there was a yard right down the street, and they had the most beautiful garden. So, I would constantly take pictures of their flowers because, yeah, I can't grow a flower to save my life. But yeah, just flowers I'll see when I'm walking around that I'll think, wow, that's so gorgeous. I have to take a picture. So yeah.
So, other than photography, do you have any other hobbies?
Um, No, that's like I said. I love to write. Like I said, I don't think maybe watching movies is a hobby because I'm addicted to movies. I am. I love my horror movies. But I also love any Jane Austen type movie. I love that age, that period. So
Yeah.
I love Jane Austen type movie. But I really do love my movies. It doesn't matter whether it's action or horror or I'm not really into romantic movies unless they're a Jane Austen movie, just because I love Jane Austen's writings. But
Yeah.
but I love movies. I'll watch pretty much anything, just about. So
You're talking about Jane Austen reminds me, I had submitted to a Jane Austen anthology a while back, the three poems which were published in it. But since you like Jane Austen, I try not to share, but this is a comical one, and you're going to be able to relate to it. And anybody who has not seen Pride and Prejudice won't. But this one's called I'm in Love with Mr. Darcy. Are you in love with Mr. Darcy too?
yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
all women are in love with Mr. Darcy. So this one is kind of comical. It's like, I'm in love with Mr. Darcy. I picked up a book. I met the man of my dreams. A fictionalized character, just my luck it seems. A man who was dashing and quite debonair. A man of great means with lustrous flair. I'm merely but a reader of this romantic novel. The thought of being Elizabeth seems rather colossal. For it was that lovely woman that captured his heart. He appeared to be captivated by her from the start. At first she found him haughty and somewhat of a prude. There were times she found him arrogant and rather rude. Yet there was something about him that made her heart prance. Could it have been the touch of his hand on her as they danced? What were the odds that togetherness they would find? Pride and prejudice stood in the way of a love so divine. Yet love overcame all obstacles that they had met, as this heart-warming story became one not to forget. Yes, years after reading this book, I am still in love with Mr. Darcy. In my mind, he's my beloved. I have weaved my own fallacy.
I love that.
But I think anybody that, yeah, any woman, even the women in India, Dr. Shamanez is always like, oh, Mr. Darcy, I love Mr. Darcy. So, would you share another one of yours with us, please?
Oh yeah. I have one, and I was going through all my poems last night. I'm like, okay, which ones am I going to read today? And I found one that I wrote, I think earlier this year, and with everything that's recently going on with the plagiarism, this one really stuck out. So I'm like, oh, this is perfect. It's called Karma. There are consequences for your actions, a price for all your heinous sins. One's bad behavior does not forever go unpunished without or within. It may take a while for karma to find you, to sentence the accused, as the nimbus of your glamour falters and is thus revealed a ruse. When fate beguiles the truth from one's wicked lips devout, like a foreboding aura, the kismet of doom will sort you out. You cannot hide from karma, your actions justly measured and duly weighed, just like the scales of Anubis, rewarding those of good and punishing those who stray. So again, that has to do with
Mm.
mythology. I'm obsessed with mythology. Doesn't matter what culture it comes from. You know, Greek, Egyptian. I love all mythology from every culture. I really do, and I try to work a little bit of into every all of my poems. I think.
Yeah. I never learned much mythology is because I went to so many schools. I remember just having just a hint of it one time, and that was about it for me. But yeah, that's fun. Well, we can learn from mythology from you. Do you create your own mythology, or do you refer to the well-known mythology?
I usually refer to all the well known mythologies. I have been working on a set of longer poems, like almost like short stories, but they're in poetic form, and I guess it's kind of starting my own mythology writing these. I've hit a roadblock with them, but I have tried starting writing my own, and it's but when I write them, they are still loosely based on multiple other mythologies.
Right.
So
Right. Wow. So we have a comment here. Let me bring it up. Again, we don't know who it is. If you could tell us who you are, that'd be great. In this postmodern era, we have the liberty to write whatever we like, but the choice of lexical items, themes, humor, satire, and images still impact on readers' mind. Yes, I agree with that. Yeah, that's true. So, do you have a bucket list?
oh, good grief, I do. Um, let me think. I've always wanted to learn how to swim, and I'm probably too old to do that now. But that's because I love mermaids so much, and the whole idea of mermaids. I have mermaids all over my house. I have lots of mermaid books. I would love to learn how to swim and actually, swim in the ocean with. I love sea turtles and all that. So I would love to be able to actually learn to swim so I can, be one step closer to, mermaids. And even though I know they're not real, I can always hope, because the ocean is vastly unexplored. We never know technically, but I would love to
Yeah,
learn to swim.
we all
And
we all want unicorns and stuff to be real too.
that would be nice. I know they're not, but it would be nice. And I've always wanted to learn Spanish, so that's on my bucket list. There are some places I want to go there on my bucket list. I've always wanted to visit the Bermuda Islands because it looks so beautiful, and that beautiful blue crystal water. I would
Yeah,
love to visit there. Um, I've always wanted to go to Sanibel Island in Florida, but with the recent hurricane, that may never happen, unfortunately. But
yeah,
yeah, I want to travel. I really do. I love castles, so I've always wanted to go to Europe and places like Germany and England and France and Scotland just to see all. Like I would love to take a trip just to go from castle to castle in every single country.
yeah,
That's a huge thing on my bucket list. Absolutely.
yeah. Always has been. So Alan Johnson, who is the one who created the video I showed you earlier, creates a lot of our videos. Says he's a great lover of mythology. So, and then we have Jill, who says that we are never too old to achieve anything new. And she also says, "Excuse me, everything magical is genuinely true."
I agree.
And,
There's
and Alan Johnson says mermaids and unicorns are real. They live brightly in our minds. Well, that is true. They are alive in our minds. So it makes you wonder how someone ever first conceived that. And of course, who ever first conceived it, we'll never know. But aren't there like tales, like real tales of like fishermen and people going out to sea and
yeah. Oh,
about the mermaid?
there are hundreds of tales of sailors seeing them when they're traveling, explorers. And I was actually watching something last night about dragons, and it's interesting that every culture around the world has a tale about a mermaid or a dragon. And even though these cultures are in no way connected, had no interaction with each other, yet all of these cultures have mermaid tales and, stories about dragons. And I just find that amazing. Like, there has to be at least a grain of truth in those stories if every culture around the world has a mermaid story, you know, a dragon story, whatever it is, every culture. So there
Right.
has to be at least
Yeah,
a
that
great.
is unusual. That is unusual. So we have Alan Johnson says he has to go. His unicorn is ready. So there you go, Alan. And then we have Jill who says she met a I met a mermaid, but of course I'm a fisherman's daughter. So Jill's met a mermaid.
That's awesome.
So yeah, that is interesting, isn't it? I guess I never knew that little tidbit that all cultures, have that. Never even thought about it. It's interesting. So, is there anything, any kind of advice that you would give to, people who are coming into poetry and into community, as far as writing, as far as sharing, and that type of thing?
Just write what you love. Um, if people try to help, let them. A lot of people are, because thanks to social media, though social media can be very helpful. It's also full of a lot of trollers and haters and negative people. So I'd say, just take the good, use what you can, ignore the bad. If you really
Mhm.
love writing, don't let anything stop you.
All
Just
right.
do what you love. As long as it makes you happy, do it. You're not hurting as long as you're not hurting anybody and you're doing what you love, then do it. Don't let anything or anyone stop you from doing what you love.
Do you think that writing is a talent, a gift, a gifted talent like singing or art, or do you think it's something to write well that can be learned, or maybe both?
I think it's both. I think some people are just naturally gifted writers, but I think it's also something that can be learned. Yeah, I think it's definitely both. I think if you study and work hard at it and try to learn new things and improve, I
Yeah.
think it's definitely both. Absolutely.
Yeah, because I mean, we had to start somewhere, didn't we? I think I
Exactly.
always kind of knew I had a writer, but we got a couple other comments. Let's see what this says. In almost every writer's life, there comes a period of stagnation that can have a serious impact whether to stop writing or not. Did you ever have that problem?
Yeah, there'll be long periods of time where nothing will inspire me. And yeah, there'll be long periods of stagnation where I won't have any inspiration. And yeah, and I really hate that because I love to write. So if the long periods of stagnation are happens quite a bit, unfortunately, it really does.
Yeah. Then we have another one. My late sister loved unicorns. When she died, my niece had some brooches made of unicorns in her honor. That's nice. All right, so I'm going to have you go ahead and recite one last poem, and then I think we're going to wrap it up because we're going to get ready for our next segment. So when we are done with this segment, just to let everyone know, I think I'm going to close out of this segment, make a new one for the episode that's coming up right after this, and that is on plagiarism, where we have a panel discussion of about hopefully 7 to 8 people there. So um, please join us. So if you would honor us with another one of your poems, that would be wonderful.
This one's called The Witching Hour. I lament for those who at night are slumbering fast asleep, for they miss the enigmatic sounds of the night tide's eternal heartbeat. The starry skies glint diamond like, tilting and twirling endlessly as I dance amongst the stars, awash in memories.
Short and sweet.
Short
Did
and
you,
sweet.
did,
Yeah.
did you do a short and sweet one on me?
Yeah.
Okay. Um, very good.
Thank
I
you.
mean, having a little morning sinus stuff going on right now. So
I know the
even though
feeling.
just to take this is a Halloweeny cup,
Oh, that's
actually.
cute.
Macadoos. I'm not a big Halloween person personally, but unlike you, I don't like being scared. I even have some issues sometimes with watching a movie that has a lot of suspense, you know. So I don't do very good that way. Um, so do you have any words of wisdom or enlightenment that you'd like to share with anyone in the community before we leave today?
Um, I guess, we're all learning. We're all trying to improve. And yeah, just it's like the one woman commented, just post your stuff. You never know who may like it. And we are our own worst critic. I know I am, most definitely. But yeah, just, believe in yourself and just post your work because you never know who may like it.
Right, right. Well, thank you so much. It's really great getting to know more about you, and thank you for sharing your wonderful works with us. And I can certainly see why you're very well liked, and your excuse me, poetry is esteemed. You're a dear
Thank you.
poetess. Do you like being called poetess?
I do. I'm still getting used to that, but yes, I do.
So again, we are going to close this session out. About 10 minutes or so, I'm going to be making up another session on plagiarism where we'll have a panel discussion. So y'all can join in on that. But thank you so much, Courtney. It was great talking to you. Thank you, everyone who was here with us during the session. And I'll see you in a little bit, Courtney.
All right. Thank
All
you.
right. Bye, everyone.